How's it going? I just wanted to provide a quick little summary of this project, which is essentially to help us gather a little bit of information about this list we have. So this is a list of about 2,500 people. As you see, we've got most of the information, their name, the platform we found them on, kind of a summary of their sort of bio a little bit from LinkedIn, and an email, and then their LinkedIn link. Now, there are about probably 500 of them that do not have an email. So these ones at the bottom in green, we'll have to find their email address if you can, but the rest of them should be pretty simple in that regard of what we're looking for. So the idea really behind it is what we're looking for is to provide a podcast that they've been on that we can reference in our email, or an article if they haven't been on a podcast. So as an example here, all of these people here are ones that we've engaged with on LinkedIn already, and they didn't wind up kind of having much of a conversation with us. So we're going to try and send them an email or set of emails to see if we can boost our conversation up to them. So I'll give you a first example here of this woman named Sabrina. So this is something that we want. We already have her email address. All we're looking for is a podcast first and foremost. If we can't find a podcast she's been on, then we'll look for an article that she's written. So she's a pretty interesting one. So the first step in this one that you'll do is you can look on her LinkedIn if you want. But the first step that I would sort of say in this one is actually to just search for her. So there's a platform out there called Listen Notes, and Listen Notes tracks podcasts from all kinds of different people. So what you simply will do here is I just put in her name in Google. So I put Sabrina Victoria Listen Notes. And then when you search for it, what you'll see is it'll pop up. So here actually is a podcast that she's been on. Now, there are some limitations of your ability to go right into Listen Notes and do it. So we have to kind of do it in this interesting way to find it. So we know that she's been on, this is a podcast that she has been on, but also we can sort of see. So this one is like her podcast. So listen in as Sabrina as they talk about this one. So this is not the podcast we'd want. This is her podcast she's been on, that she hosts. So we don't want the one that she's a host of. We want one that she's been on. So here's one that is a podcast, looks like it's called The Wealth or Asked and Answered in these ways. So what we want to do here instead is try to find a podcast that she's been on. So here's an episode, the possibility, sort of these things behind it. So it's just remember here, this is her podcast. We do not want her podcast. We want one that she has been on. So where it says like that one, so she's the host, we want to skip that one. But for this one, we can see from victim to victor is kind of what this one is, and it looks like it's called The Wealth. So we just click into it, and it should pop up here. So here's this one. So all that we would do is we'd go in and copy this. This is the podcast that she's been on. And so we can see this one. It's fairly recent in that one. And then all we would do is we'd go into the podcast and paste that name there. So that's really all that we would do in that regard. Now, let's just imagine that, something doesn't work behind it. Well, the second thing you could do is you could take her name and you could go into YouTube and you could look right here and sort of say this one and then type in the word podcast to sort of see. So here's her name, Victoria. So you can kind of see, okay, so she's actually given a TED Talk. That's interesting to us. We can see that one actually fairly recently. We can look for other things. So this is the cookbook podcast she's been on. So we could sort of see that one instead. Own Your Confidence, this sort of show behind it, 67 views. And here looks like a kind of interesting one. This has about 4.1 thousand views. So we just would click on this one and sort of pause this one here, and then we can pull this one. So we'll call this, the name of this podcast here is called The Powerful Mind and Powerful Soul. So we could just take this one here here's it called the Her Version podcast. So what we do is just call that one the Her Version. And in that case, we would just go into there and add it there. So now we've got this one instead. So we call it the Her Version and that one. Now, let's just say that we can't find a podcast that she's been on. There's no interviews she's been on. There's no podcast she's been on. So what do we do instead? Well, instead, what we could do is we could wind up looking on her account here. This is just clicking on her LinkedIn, which you can sort of see is right here. This is her one. And then sort of scrolling through it. And we can look to sort of see something that she may have written. So in here, so you can see she's got some examples here of some podcasts she's been on already. But we could essentially try to look for an article that she's written. So what we could do is just try and see if she's got an article here or something in that one. So looks like she's got a few things here. And let's kind of see like what we might do there. So we can kind of look to sort of see. So what I would do is I would probably sort of see in here and go through her activity and sort of see like, okay, does she have any posts that we could look at? And we just kind of look through and see if she's sort of written anything here. So we find here, okay, there's a podcast she's been on. That's great. There's another podcast. We can keep going and sort of see like, is there any kind of like an article that she's written or talk that she's given here? Is that kind of way behind it? So we could look to sort of see here. Let's see. I'm going to keep going. And so maybe that doesn't work in that way. So then what we could do is we could just put her name in there and then literally just search for this one and that one and look for article. So look for something that she's written. So here's something here that she said. Let's see if we can find, okay, here's something. This is like looks like some things that we might find. Anyway, so most of the time I don't think you'll have to go find an article or something she's written, right? Or that kind of way. You could write blog post or something like that. But let's see if we can find a blog post. Here's some things that we could do to find something that she's written, and those kind of things. So here's something interesting. We spoke to this person here. So we've got this kind of article. And so, procrastination, that one. So if you can't find anything else, you could go in there and find that one and then put that in to an article. Now, the only thing you need to know is you do not need to do the article unless you can't find the podcast. So if you can find a podcast, you're done. So we found one. We don't need the second one. But if we couldn't find that one right there, then we would need the article behind that one. That's kind of what we do. So you typically should, hopefully 99% of the time you find a podcast, but if not, you would put that one in there. So that's kind of just to know it's like you only really need one. And in this case, the podcast is it. So that's kind of it. That's really the project there. So all of these people, they have their name, we got their person, we got their LinkedIn profile. The ideal thing I would sort of say is to start by searching their name. So let's just take, this one here, Aaron Eitfeld. And then what I would do is I would just do Aaron Eitfeld, just like that. And I would just type in listen notes right at the end and sort of see, do they pop up? So here you go. This is something there. Let's see. So does that one look right? So you want to find something that, again, looks like this person's here. So I don't know if I see one in those places and spaces. So then what I would do is I would go into this and I would just type in Aaron Eitfeld podcast and I would sort of see, does anything pop up in YouTube? So let's see if we can find anything. Aaron Wren. I don't see anything in here. So again, this guy doesn't look like we see anything. So then what I would do is I would go into his post. I would sort of say, okay, let's see if this guy, the executive director, and this one, we might go into here and look to sort of see, okay, is there anything in here that we could find? So maybe you would go in here and look at his posts and see, okay, let's see what we can find in here. Has he been on anything? So let's see why it changed so hard. Goals for the year, leading change. Okay, so here might be something. Let's see if there's an interview that he's been on or something like that. So if we kind of keep scrolling around, just kind of skimming it quickly, and then if we see something to say, okay, this sort of training program there. So again, kind of looking for something he's written in these ways. Just looking for anything. Oh, he's actually published a book. So let's see. Did he do a book in this way? Or let's see. Writing is personal. Not really sure if this is his book or not, but let's see. Unpublished. Oh, he's a chapter. So he just wrote a chapter, so that won't matter. As long as he's not been in another book, great. If you see a book in it, kind of remove him from it. And then we'll see if he's written anything along the way here. Stuff like that. Let's see, researching, coaching, and teaching here. He's got this idea of this new company. Again, if we can see an article, the Awaken Leadership Solutions kind of thing, that's his company. And let's see if we can find an article that he's written or something like that he's been on. So I'm just kind of scrolling until I can find something, seeing if there's anything into it. Numbers here. Let's see, these things. Here you go. So here looks like something. Here's his page. So the Resilient Leaders Cohort. So we're going to go to his website and kind of see, like, is there an article that he's maybe written here in this one? So he's got a blog post here. There we go. Now we can look for something into it and sort of see, okay, here's something he's written. So you need more than a vacation. So then what we'll do is we'll just do that one and we'll just say, great. I couldn't find a podcast he's on, but I found this. So now I just go in and I put that here. So I couldn't find something, but I'm going to go in here and add the article that says you need more than a vacation. So that's kind of what this concept would be in that kind of place. So that's what it is. Hopefully that's helpful to understand how the project will work. Again, the goal should be for most people, I would guess, find this one, but if they can't, find an article they've written, a blog post, whatever it is. So like for Aaron, you might just write, this idea of if you're trying to hunt him, you would put this one with blog or something like that, and then kind of see what would pop up. Okay, here's his blog. We got those things. So there you go. There's kind of how the projects works. Let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully that will help. There should be, I don't know how many names are in this list, but the names, it looks like there's about 2,600. So that's the details of the project, and hopefully this is something we could tackle. So thanks a lot. Bye.